Hello everyone, welcome back or welcome to my channel. My name is Ren and I make videos a couple of times a week about books and fandom things, but in June I am making a video every day to celebrate Pride Month and to talk about LGBTQIA+ books, to talk about the history of Pride Month and talk about why we celebrate it, and a little bit of history, a little bit of education on my channel this month. Today I thought I would talk about some middle grade LGBTQIA+ books. I am a huge advocate of reading diversely to children. I think it's really important that from a really young age, and I'm talking like picture books, we read diversely to children. I think it's important that we teach children about the whole world and the diverseness of the world, and not just LGBTQIA+ people, but people of different religions and nationalities and skin colours and disabled people, and just exposing kids to that. If we don't write about it and don't talk about it, then it alienates those people. I have a niece and a nephew. My niece has been on my channel before, and she has this one doll. She has this one brand of doll which is really cool, and you can get like wheelchairs for it and crutches, and I use a walking stick. And I didn't use a walking stick when I was little. That's been something which has happened in my adult life. But if I had, having a doll like that would have been really cool, because I would have seen me in the doll. And I think about the dolls I did have and how most of them were white and there wasn't any disabled representation in it. And I remember going into Build-A-Bear a few months ago, well, I say a few months ago, it was last year, and I saw a little set with crutches and a little wheelchair for the bears, and I just think that's really cool. And I think it's important that that is in books and it is in TV shows. This Cruise recently did this amazing thing, I'll see if I can insert it, which was really cool, and I just think that it's so important that we teach them. My niece she reads so much, she's a mini me, and she is constantly exposed to things and she loves it, and she learns about the world and different people in the world, and it's really cool, I think, because if you're exposing children to that, it's good, because then they're aware of that. And also if it's something that they then question themselves, they have the resources and they know that you as someone in their life is teaching them about that. So if they wanted to ask any questions, then they know they've got that, you know, which I just think is really important and the most important thing when it comes to teaching them. And I think it's just a load of rubbish that people say that it corrupts them. Like, teaching kids that gay people exist isn't going to make your kids gay. Like, it's going to be gay whether or not they know that gay people exist or not. The only difference is you're actually giving them support rather than teaching them that you're not going to support who they are, which is quite sad. By not wanting to expose them, you make them feel a hell of a lot worse, because then they feel alone, and that's the worst thing. I don't understand, I will never understand why there are baby grows that say like ladies man on them. Like, they're a baby, and immediately like you put heterosexuality and cisgenderedness on children from the second they are born. You've like literally put it on them from the second they are born. I think it's important to make a very inclusive environment rather than forcing things on them, which could then potentially make them uncomfortable later in life, because they've from the get-go had so much put upon them. Good Luck Charlie, the Disney Channel show, ultimately was cancelled because there was a lesbian couple and parents complained that they didn't want to put that on their children. If that's what you're complaining about in life, like, I genuinely think you need to reassess. No offence, but you do. Anyway, we love an inclusive reading situation. Like I said, read to my niece, we share books, we talk about books all the time, and we make sure that she is reading as diversely as she can so she can learn about the world, and it's super good. I have some books, some of which I have read, some of which I haven't, but I wanted to give some recommendations and talk about some of these authors as well, because they do some really good middle grade books, which is the level that my niece is currently reading at. And some of these we're going to read together. First of all, we have George by Alex Gino, and this focuses on George, who, when people look at her, think that she is a boy, but George knows that she's not a boy, she is actually a girl. And then she thinks she's going to have to keep this a secret, and then the school play is Charlotte's Web, and she really wants to play Charlotte, but the teacher says she cannot play Charlotte because boys can't play girls' part, which in itself is wrong anyway. And George isn't a boy. This is a middle grade book. I've read this book, I absolutely loved it. I thought this book was absolutely phenomenal. I read it a few years ago. Alex Gino also has another book called RECS, which I want to try and get this week, which is also a middle grade novel, and it focuses on asexuality, which I think is amazing to be in a middle grade novel as well. So that's the book that I want to try and get this week. So I wanted to highlight Alex Gino as an author as well as talk about George, because I thought this book was really, really good, and I'm really, really, really looking forward to getting and reading Rick. I think it's called Rick. Here's the cover, I'm sure it's Rick, and it just sounds so good and I'm really excited, but I would always scream about Alex Gino as an author. Then we have Ivy Aberdeen's Letter to the World, and this is by Ashley Heron-Blake, and Ashley Heron-Blake is another author who writes a lot of middle grade LGBTQIA plus novels, and this focuses on Ivy, whose life is uprooted because of a tornado, and in the tornado she also loses a notebook full of drawings where she's holding another girl's hand, and it's dealing with that and family and friendship and feelings and trying to figure everything out. So again, I wanted to highlight her as an author, and she is one that me and my niece read as well. Then I have 3 books that I spoke about in a book haul a couple of months ago that I bought specifically so I could read and then my niece could read them. She is reading a little bit higher, so we have to just check content wise and like that she'll understand certain things because she's a little bit younger than actual like middle grade ages. So if there's something in there that she's young, not obviously nothing to do with LGBTQIA plus wise, but like I read Love Lessons by Jacqueline Wilson when I was too young and she had an affair with her teacher in it. Do you know what I mean? So some of them we just check first. One of them is Star-Crossed by Barbara D, and this focuses on 13-year-old Mattie, and she is thrilled when she learns that the 8th grade school play is Romeo and Juliet. She's super excited, and she's super excited to share the stage with Gemma, who she likes more than a friend. And then actually things take a turn where she has to step in as Romeo opposite Gemma's Juliet, and it is everything from there. So I'm super excited to read this one. Like I said, I haven't actually read this one yet, but I'm super excited to. It sounds really, really good, and I cannot wait to delve into it. Then we have Drumroll Please by Lisa Jen Bigelow, and it focuses on Melissa, who only joined the school band because her best friend Olivia begged her to. She actually starts to really like it. She loves playing the drums. She really feels like herself when she's playing the drums, and now she's going to spend a few weeks at Camp Rockaway with her best friend. But things aren't going to plan. Her parents are splitting up. Her and Olivia are kind of drifting apart, and she finds herself falling for another girl at camp, and it is everything from there. I'm super, super, super excited to read this one too. And then we have Me, My Dad and the End of the Rainbow by Benjamin Dean. This was one of Waterstones' book of the month, and a couple of my friends have read it and said that it's really, really good. It focuses on Archie, whose parents are splitting up, and he finds this kind of colourful flyer that flies out of his dad's pocket, and it's a pride flyer essentially, and it is kind of his dad kind of trying to figure out who he is, but from the perspective of Archie seeing what his parents are dealing with. Apparently it is quite a heavy one, but also phenomenal. So again, I'm super excited to read this one. And then finally, the last one that I want to talk about is The Deepest Breath by Meg Grean, and this is written quite lyrical. It's sort of quite like poetry kind of way, which I absolutely love. I actually found out about Meg Grean as an author this year. She's another one who I wanted to highlight, and this focuses on Stevie, and she is trying to figure out so much in the world, as you are when you're a kid, why the stars are that way, why the ocean is this way, why fish do this, why constellations and that kind of thing. But she's also trying to figure out why she feels the way she does about her friend Chloe. I really loved this book. I thought it was a really nice little book. It's not that long, and it's really, really, really good. So this is another one I wanted to highlight, and I wanted to highlight Meg Grean as an author as well. So yes, those are just some recommendations that I wanted to say. Some books I bought recently, some books that I'd read that I thought were really good middle grade starter books, and also some authors who do a really good job at telling middle grade LGBTQIA plus stories that I think are really important, because I just think it's super important that we are sharing these stories and having these discussions as young as possible. I might do a picture book version of this for very young babies, if that's something you guys would want to see. I just think it's super important that we are as diverse as possible and we talk as early as possible so that children feel included and they can see themselves in stories. Stories are so important. People do not talk enough about how important they are and how much of an effect seeing yourself in a book, like how good that is. I'd love it if you guys would leave your middle grade LGBTQIA plus book recommendations in the description, in the comments, not the description, in the comments as well. That would be absolutely brilliant because I'm always looking for recommendations. If you guys are new here, then I make videos a couple of times a week about books and fandom things, so if you want to stick around and join us, feel free to hit that subscribe button and the little notification bell. And as usual, all the links to my other social medias and also my Stranger Things podcast, which I co-host with my friend Emily. It's called Hawkins Do You Copy, and we talk about all things Stranger Things. If you want to come check that out, that's also in the description as well. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you're doing really well, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.